Good afternoon and welcome everybody back to our HR for UK Friday webinars. Today I have got some lovely news to share with you in relation to the changes of the furlough scheme, but more importantly, I have a lovely guest speaker who is here to join me and to share her knowledge and experience with you so that you can make sure that you have got yourselves prepared and ready for dealing with any sort of issues that may arise with getting staff back into work. I'm going to give it a few moments. I can see that there are still quite a few attendees busy logging on, so I will just give them the opportunity to log on, get comfortable, and then you will have both Linda and myself for the next hour. So I will get started because I think those attendees numbers have settled down now, so I think everybody is ready and comfortable. So today's webinar, we are going to be talking about supporting mental health and of course those all important furlough updates. It's today, Friday, the 26th of March, and you are here for me at 3 o'clock. So for those of you who are new to these webinars, who are HR for UK, HR for UK is a leading provider of HR and employment law support. We also have a payroll and pensions department, and we can help you with all those health and safety needs. We have been going for over 35 years, so we've got some brilliant industry experience, but of course we have some fantastic 5-star reviews, and I would really encourage you to go to our website to read those reviews for yourself and see what our clients say about us. It's all fine and well for me to be able to go on and how brilliant and fantastic we are, but of course it's what our clients experience, and I would really, as I say, encourage you to go and have a look at those 5-star reviews for yourself. So I'm Angela Clay, I'm an HR and employment law solicitor, and I'm the Managing Director of HR for UK. I'm responsible for HR for UK's role in leading professional HR services and providing those services to UK businesses. When I started doing these webinars a year ago, can you believe it, it's been a year, my vision then was to make sure that you successfully survive this crisis. And my vision was for your business to come out of this crisis successfully by me offering you clear, professional, practical support and advice and guidance. And it's that personal support that I pride myself in having been given to businesses during the last 12 months. So let's just have a quick look at what we're going to cover today. As I mentioned early on, we are going to be talking about supporting mental health in the workplace, and those all-important COVID updates. But specifically, we're going to look at how you can improve support systems of mental health, mental well-being within your work with your staff. How to spot those early signs of staff having I'll put my teeth in, by having that need and needing that additional support. There's really important about being kind to each other, but also being kind to yourself, because as business owners, as managers, as people who are dealing with these things, don't be hard on yourself. Remember that this has been a very, very difficult time, very challenging, and you need to be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Again, we're going to have a quick look at the Furlough Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, which we now know has been extended until September. There are a couple of step changes that will be coming through, which I will talk to you. Shielding, there has been some changes there, and I'm going to talk to you. And we're just going to have a discussion about any sort of issues that you may want to raise in our Q&A. For those of you who are familiar, we've got the question box on the right-hand side. Please pop your questions in there. It doesn't have to be related to today's webinar. It doesn't have to be related to me. Of course, as I say, we've got our guest speaker, Linda, who you will be able to put your questions to her. So please do use that question box on the right-hand side, and we will look forward to answering those questions for you. And also, if you have any suggestions about future webinars that you would like us to do, again, pop them in there, because these webinars are only as helpful as they are as topical as what you want them to be. I can come up with all sorts of topics and talk to you about, but they may not be of any use to you. So please do let us have your suggestions. Of course, this webinar will be recorded, and there are some slides that are available, and we will make sure that you get these. So if you have to leave early, because again, those of you who have been with me on the journey will know that I have a tendency to go over the 4 o'clock time slot, but I don't want you to miss out on anything. So, you know, please do feel free to leave if you have to, the comfort in knowing that you are not going to miss out on anything. So let's carry on with today's webinar. Supporting staff and helping them to improve mental well-being is the employer's responsibility, and it is of increasing importance now that we are in this national pandemic crisis. Even though we are coming out of it, it's probably more important now than ever. Working from home has become the new norm, and people are struggling under lockdown, whether it's dealing with limited contact with family, friends, and these conditions can lead to a sense of feeling of isolation, increased anxiety, and depression. And spotting these signs early is really important, because that's how you will be able to support your staff. And by spotting those signs early and knowing what to do will be the making of a good employer. So again, you know, you will not be surprised when I start spitting some statistics out to you, that 39% of employees experience poor mental health, where work was a contributing factor to that. Only 51% of people feel comfortable about talking about mental health issues in the workplace. And typically around 300,000 people lose their jobs because of long-term mental health problems. And what's going to come as even a bigger surprise is those numbers are pre-pandemic. I would hate to think what those numbers are looking like now, and I'm sure there are a lot more. So despite mental health being the focus and more frequently brought up in media, we see it quite often rising. It's a rising agenda for many employers. There is still a stigma that is attached to mental health in the workplace. Just as it felt that mental health in the workplace was getting addressed, we had the pandemic crisis, which in some cases makes it feel like we have taken a step backwards. More than half of the UK adults and over 2/3 of young people felt their mental health has deteriorated quite a lot. And in fact, I'd probably go further and say significantly during the pandemic crisis. What is even more alarming is, without previous mental health problems, poor mental health during lockdown has increased. So even those who have never ever had mental health issues or had any experiences of anxiety, the pandemic crisis has actually brought that out, which is really quite alarming. And I know Linda's going to talk about this, you know, when I hand over to her. But it just really sort of highlights mental health should not be put in the closet. It shouldn't be tucked away. It should be one of those topics that people should feel comfortable to talk about and be free to do it. And as an employer, as I said early on, it's your responsibility to make sure that your employees feel comfortable and supported about their mental health issues. Workplace stability, it has been one of the biggest contributing factors to you know, the added anxieties during lockdown. There have been other life-changing events, what has happened during the pandemic crisis, the loss of loved ones, breakdown of relationships. Lots of factors have added to that. And employers find themselves in a really tricky situation, because we have a balancing act. On the one side, we have to make some really difficult decisions about the finances and the operations of the business. But on the other side, we have a really big responsibility for employees' safety and well-being. Over 9.6 million employees have been furloughed, and some of those are still on furlough 12 months since the crisis began. Being out of work for 12 months is a very long time. Even knowing that the job is still there, it is going to play a part on how this is going to impact the employees. Lack of communication from employers has played a big part in doing that. So a key message to take away from today, communication is absolutely key. Communicate with your employees, both those who are in work, but also those who are perhaps still on furlough. Consistent communication is absolutely key. And we know that we are now starting to come out of lockdown, that frustration might be felt even more, and employers might need to consider approaching that return to work after this period of lockdown in the same way that you would approach the normal return to work after long-term absence. But most importantly, employers have a range of resources and support already to hand and to help them with the well-being of their staff. And it would be a good time now to remind yourself where you can go and get that support. And again, Linda is going to share with you lots of resources and how you can help your employees. And of course, after the webinar, you can get in contact with Linda and I'll share those details with you when we get there, because the help is there to be able to support your employees. Don't feel that you are on your own. Get in touch. If we can't help you, we will put you in touch with the right people who can. And now is a great time for employees to sit back and reflect on how they have handled employees' well-being and mental health over the last 12 months. Look at what went well, what went wrong, and what can you do better going forward. And the one key thing for employees is to focus on the prevention rather than the cure, particularly during these unprecedented times. But it's important for employers to create a workplace where employees are confident to feel that they can open up about mental health, open up about their well-being, and put it on the agenda to make sure that it is something that is addressed going forward. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to hand you over to the expert who is going to be able to share some really good insights with you. Linda Neville from SanaMente. I always pronounce that incorrectly. So Linda, I'm going to rely on you to pronounce it properly, because I always put a T in where it shouldn't be, who is our expert, who is going to be with you for the next half an hour to share with you her insights. Don't forget to add in those questions. Linda, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Angela. That's been great. And it's SanaMente. Lots of people put the T in and get stuck with SanaMente, like Santa Claus, but it's not. It's SanaMente, which means healthy mind, actually. So Sanjay is going to operate my slides for me today, so that will be great. I can't see them at the moment, but I'm sure he's got them under control. So thank you, that's brilliant. So could you pop up for the next slide for me, Sanjay, please? So the aim of today for me is to talk to you about how to look after your mental health, how to think about your own mental health, and how to think about the mental health of the people around about you. And I'm hoping that by the end of today, we will have covered off some of these topics, and that you'll feel a little bit more resourced and able, and a little bit more confident in being able to recognise and maybe take some action with the people that you're working with. So what I aim to do is tell you a little bit about myself and the company that I run, what we do and why we do it, a little bit about pressure to help you understand how that works and what the impact can be, the antidote to pressure, the importance of compassion, which is something that I'm very passionate about, and action that you can take, and then an invitation to relax with me at some point later. So if you could put the next slide up, Sanjay, please. So a wee bit about myself. I am a registered mental nurse. I trained a number of years ago and worked for 13 years, as it says there, as a staff nurse. And during that time, I worked with people who were seriously mentally ill, so acutely mentally ill or suffering with a chronic, severe and enduring mental illness in a whole range of situations, from inpatient to community to forensic situations. During that time, I went on and did a BA, and then I did a master's, and that helped me to be promoted into senior management. I was clinical nurse specialist for vulnerable people for a wee while, which meant that I specialised in the protection of children, adults, and specialised in domestic violence. I was then director of nursing and then director of mental health services. At the point I was director of mental health services, I managed a £100 million budget, a £50 million capital budget, and 3,500 staff. So quite a pressured job. I then was being restructured again for about the 4th time in my NHS experience, and decided that after 26 years it was time to go. It was time to go and do something different. So I did. I left and I did a little bit of management consultancy. I retrained and did some hypnotherapy, and then opened my own private practice in 2012. And since then, we've seen around 500 people. Of those 500 people, the emerging condition that we deal with is an anxiety-based condition. Anything at all, any situation that anyone is struggling with that is associated with anxiety is what we specialise in. As I mentioned earlier, I am a registered nurse, and because I trained very early in my life, I was 17 when I started. It's a career and a profession that I want to hold on to. So to keep my registration, I continue to practice as a nurse, and I do expert witness work for court. And since I started on my own, I've done about 500 court reports as well. So that's just a little bit about me and the context that I work in. Would you go on to the next slide, please? So what we do is that we run a private practice, and we help people to make changes. We assist them to live their best life in the best way that they can. And we do that using a blend of talking therapy and hypnosis. We assess every individual who comes to us. We look at their context in which they're living. We look at their goals, and then we help them to put together a programme that is going to get them from A to B. And we help them to live the life that they want to live. It's not the life that we think they should live, it's the life that they want to live. And then we help them access their own personal resources, because we firmly believe that everyone has the resources to live their best life. The difficulty we have in life is sometimes we cannot access those resources at a given time for whatever reason. And I'll go on to talk about those reasons later. We also help people to build emotional resilience. And by that, I mean the ability to move on from bad situations with a degree of determination, a degree of optimism, and with your self-esteem and your confidence being intact. We build coping strategies, and we help people to access their healthy coping strategies. We all have coping strategies, and we use those all of the time. The difficulty we have is we get very, very used to using unhealthy coping strategies. And we can very quickly tell ourselves that those are good coping strategies, because what they do is they give us instant gratification. And we'll all have coping strategies that we use for that, things like chocolate or alcohol or eating loads of carbs, whatever it happens to be. So we help people to access their own healthy coping strategies. And I don't just mean around physical situations like healthy eating. I mean around being able to access that inner voice of your own and train it to speak nicely to yourself and not to be criticising. We work with individuals, and we also work with groups. And we found that since the COVID pandemic came into view, that we find that our ability to work with individuals online has been great. It's not affected the way that we give therapy at all. And our ability to work with groups has been enhanced as well. Could we have the next slide, please? So as I said earlier, we use a blend of talking and hypnosis. Now, I don't know if anyone in the room has ever experienced hypnosis or knows what hypnosis is, but it's not like you see on the television. It's not about getting you to do things you don't want to do. Hypnosis is a natural state. We are in and out of hypnosis all of the time. And it's a state of focused concentration. It's when you are at your most relaxed, your most comfortable, and when you're at the most receptive to suggestion, to opportunity, and to be able to use your imagination for the best way for you. 20 minutes of relaxation is said to be the equivalent to a good night's sleep. So it enhances mental clarity, focus, and energy. So we use a blend of talking and hypnosis. We teach techniques to manage thoughts, feelings, and behaviours. Now, if you imagine that the thoughts that we have will evoke a feeling, that feeling will then evoke a behaviour. And if we can manage our thoughts, we can then manage our feelings, we can then manage our behaviours, and that then helps overall with relationships. We help people take control of their life, because quite often in a situation of anxiety or distress, the the overriding fear is that people have no control. And we don't like being in control. We like to believe that we have some control over our decisions, our lifestyle, and what's going to happen to us. And the other thing that we focus on and help people to understand is that all emotions are important. There's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion. Those emotions are there to guide us. They are there to help us live our lives and inform us of our environment. The duration, the frequency, and the intensity of that emotion is what we have to keep an eye on. And if something is happening for a long period of time, it's happening frequently, and you're feeling it intensely, then that's when the emotion is starting to drive your behaviour. It's not informing your behaviour. And at that point, there's an indication that you may need to take some sort of action to do some work around where that emotion's coming from. Could you have the next slide, please? What I'd like you to understand is that relaxation and anxiety is on a continuum, if you like. At one end of the scale, you have relaxation, hypnosis, whatever you want to call it, but deep relaxation, where it's a state of calm and contentment, where you feel comfortable and at ease. And that's where you can let your imagination thrive. That's where you can look at opportunities, you can believe in your own skills, you can believe in your own abilities. And it's also where we're most receptive, as I said earlier, to suggestion, opportunities and images. At the other end of the scale, we have distress, fear, anxiety, whatever you want to call that. And I'm sure you've all heard of the situation of fight or flight, when your anxiety gets to that level where you're in panic. And at that point, the options open to you are to run, to fight, or the other option is to freeze, where you just stand still and the world kind of moves around you. And you'll have seen animals in wildlife programs that have done that, where they've just frozen when the predator has come near them. Now, at the point of absolute fear, we have 3% of our cognition available to us. And our cognition is defined as our ability to think, our ability to use the resources that allow us to think. And those resources are being able to concentrate, being able to remember, being able to analyse information, being able to interact with our social surroundings, and being able to put all that together, formulate a plan, and evoke some action. Now, if you only have 3% of your mind working with you in a state of anxiety, you are not at your best at all. Not at your best. And we've evolved so much from our cavemen times. We don't face predators where we have to fight or flee. What we do now is we face situations where we're expected to perform, and we're expected to perform cognitively. So the real challenge around anxiety, relaxation and distress is the more we can help people to access the relaxation end of the spectrum, the more cognition they have available to them and the better they can be. Thanks, Sanjay. Can we move on to the next one, please? I hope that makes some sort of sense. So if we think that there are lots and lots of situations in the world that are going to provoke emotion, and the emotion is then, depending on how it's dealt with, how it's thought, is going to either dissipate or it's going to grow. If it grows, it starts to become more of an anxiety situation. And if it keeps going, it goes up the scale, as I've described earlier, to the point that you get to fight or flight. And all the situations that can provoke anxiety are all sorts of things: our relationships, our children, our internal view of our purpose. That all provokes. And then we have our internal situations, our internal view. So the amount of time that we know we have available to us to do the things that we need to do can add another layer of pressure. Our expectations of ourselves can add a pressure. The expectations of the people around us, either real or our imagined expectations, can add a pressure. And the amount of energy we have will also have a real impact on that. So if your energy is low, your anxieties are high, your time is low, and your expectations are high, you're not going to be at your best. All of your situation is working against you. When that situation arises, our interpretation of that is really, really important. because our interpretation of a situation will become our reality. If you're in a situation like that, feeling the pressure and respond to the pressure, it's likely to be a, oh my goodness feeling. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Oh my goodness, can I get this done? And it may be that our internal dialogue at that point will start to work against us. You know, you shouldn't have done, you could have done this better, you're not working hard enough. If you were cleverer, da 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 da. So we have to be really careful about our interpretation and how our internal dialogue works. And I just want you to take some time to just, as I'm talking, think about your own reality, your own world that you live in, and just ask yourself the question, you know, when I'm feeling stressed, is it real? Is it imagined? What are my components? How are my components interacting with each other? And what's my inner dialogue saying? You know, is my inner dialogue kind? Am I being kind to myself? Or am I piling on the pressure and making the situation just a little bit harder? Are the things that I'm saying to myself things that I would say to a loved one, a colleague, a friend? And if they're not, then ask yourself the question, why? Why is it okay to say them to yourself? Because in my view, it's not okay at all. And the last thing to think about in this slide is that our unconscious minds will give us what we look for. Our unconscious minds are incredibly helpful and they want to do the best they can, but sometimes they get the wrong information or they misinterpret the information that we give ourselves. The best example of this is the person who wants to lose weight, who gets up on a Monday morning and says, that's it, new week, I am not eating chocolate. Now, the unconscious mind does not hear not, it only hears eat chocolate. So that person will spend their day thinking, oh my goodness, everywhere I go, I can see chocolate. I can see it in the shop, I can see it at work, I can see it wherever. And then it becomes a battle of will. And then eventually the person will get tired and they will give in and they will have the chocolate. So we have to work carefully and kindly with our unconscious minds, allowing our unconscious minds to look for the thing that we really need in a way that is helpful. Next slide, please, Sanjay. So as I said earlier, there's anxiety is a spectrum. And just to recap, we have on one end, we have deep relaxation, that comfort, that calm, that imaginative place. And we have on the other side, fight, flight, or distress. All emotions are there to guide us. All emotions are there to help us live our best life. Next slide, please. The pandemic has been difficult. As Angela said, there have been a whole raft of things that have been difficult. But one of the things is that we have had to undergo lots and lots of change and uncertainty. And as human beings, we do not like that. That takes us away from the fact that we don't have any control. You know, we can't control or decide when we want to do things because we're now being led by a government restriction, which we all agree with, perhaps, but we don't want to actually do it. COVID-19 has been an emotional roller coaster. The people that we've seen over the last year have gone from being acutely anxious at the very beginning a year ago. They've gone through a period of apathy where they've been quite worried and not knowing what was going to happen next. And now what we're finding is that people are very anxious in a more chronic way, but very distressed and sad and also exhausted. They want some light, they want some interaction, they want something light-hearted and fun to do, but they're also quite frightened to engage and do that as well. So it's an interesting dichotomy for people right now. Home working, as you know, I'm sure you know more about this than I do, but people who are home working have undergone huge changes and had to manage all sorts of boundaries. Some people have done that very well, others have not. Our social boundaries have changed as well. You know, we're doing everything on Zoom. We're not seeing people in real life. And that's different. And that's caused us to become more isolated. Some of the people that I work with in the very early days We're having loads and loads of Zoom meetings. A lot of people that I work with live in their own, and in the early days they were talking to people on Zoom. They were having pub quizzes and knitting bees and all sorts of things, and now they're zoomed out. They don't want to do that, so they're quite isolated. That in turn it exacerbates worry and low mood. Next slide, please, Sanjay. What that gives us is a situation of overload and the fact that we're leaking. And my job, the job of me and my team, is that we help bring out the sponges of the leaking people. We help them get rid of all that overloaded water, create some space and move forward. Next slide, please. Brilliant, thank you. Now I've put this slide in, and you're getting this as a handout, so I think it might be helpful for you to just be able to put into context the real impact of anxiety as a particular condition on an individual. And you can see by this slide that it goes across the emotional, the mental health, and the physical and the social. And it's really quite breathtaking when you see it like that, just how difficult it could be to live with an anxiety-based condition. And bearing in mind, if you have an anxiety-based condition, which, you know, in context is a deep, deep, deep sense of worry. Anxiety and depression are two sides of the one coin. So if you have a deep, deep, deep worry, then you are going to feel sad. Your mood's going to be low. You're going to feel depressed. If you have a depression, you very likely have a degree of anxiety. So the impact is almost twofold. I'm not going to go through all those on there because you can read that and you can look at it later. But just to summarise, you know, the emotional, the physical and the social impact is huge on people. But the good news, onto the next slide please, is that there's an antidote. So just let me get this right so I can say it right. I do this wrong every time. So relaxation to anxiety, purposeful relaxation to anxiety is what kryptonite is to Superman. It's counterintuitive because people who are anxious feel like they need to keep moving. They feel like they need to keep thinking, that they need to keep on top of things. And they tell themselves, the more I can do this, the better I'll feel. If I could just get to the end of this, I will feel better. And actually, it's so counterintuitive and it doesn't happen, it doesn't work. It might happen and it might help in the very early days of feeling a little bit stressed and being a little bit overwhelmed with a workload. But you know, by the time you get to the end of the project, you'll feel a bit better. But if you have a situation of ongoing intensity, chronic anxiety, then that will not help you feel better. The thing that will help you feel better is relaxing. And that is counterintuitive because your body and your mind don't want to sit still. They don't want to be still. They don't want to be doing what they perceive to be nothing. But at that point, I would suggest that you access your inner wisdom, your inner compassion, and you take the time to move forward with it. So purposeful relaxation would be things like meditation or mindfulness, yoga. Things like running and exercise also have a really, really good effect. But the ability of your mind and body to be still, to be in harmony, and to reflect, recuperate, and re-energize is the way forward against and fighting the anxiety battle. Next slide, please, Sanjay. In addition to that, I teach with all my clients, I teach the need for compassion. And our therapy, our goals, our programs are all compassion based. And the theory around this is that compassion is the glue that holds the world together. Without compassion, we will not be a civilized human race. And we will, as individuals, not be the best that we can be. And the definitions of the components of compassion are listed there. So it's all about kindness, understanding, respect, and dignity. But it's also about wisdom, courage, and strength. This is not an easy option. This is the tough option. But this is the option that will get us the best results as an individual. For us to be the best we can be, Our compassion has to be in balance, and we have 3 flows of compassion. One flow of compassion is from us to the world. The other flow is from the world to ourselves. And the third flow is from ourselves to ourselves. Now, the flow from you to the world is a really interesting one, because in high performers, high achievers, these people get very, very good at being very busy, being very productive, being very efficient, being very good, and quite often can be perfectionists. And what that gives them is the ability to be strong, be resilient, and be dependable. So they carry on doing those things. And the more they practice them, the more they do them. The rest of the world looks at these people and thinks, oh, well, okay, they're coping, they're fine. But what they're actually doing is setting themselves up in a position where actually it's very difficult for them to actually have help. It's very difficult for them to accept help. It's very difficult for them to ask for help. And it's also very difficult for anybody outside of that situation to give help. So just thinking about yourself, it may be that you recognise some of yourself there. Remembering it's about being in balance. The flow of compassion from yourself to the world could be flowing very freely. I wonder what the flow of compassion from the world to you is like. How good are you at looking after yourself? How good are you at accepting compliments, accepting help, asking for help, recognising that you need help? And then the flow of compassion from yourself to yourself is the one about what's that inner voice saying? What standards and expectations are being delivered to yourself from yourself, and what kind of treatment are you giving yourself if you don't hit that standard on that day? And if that's negative, if any of that is negative, if you look at that and think, if I were to compare my expectations on me to my expectations of someone else, would they be unrealistic? If the answer is yes, then why? Why do you expect yourself to be performing more than you would someone else? Then if you are criticising yourself, calling yourself names or whatever for not achieving those standards, why would you do that? You're the person that's going to be with you for the whole of your life, so why would you do that to yourself? And if you are doing those things, what you are essentially doing is undermining your confidence, your self-esteem, your resilience, and your ability to be the best that you can be. Anyone who's dealing with internal criticism is working against themselves by undermining their own healthy coping strategies. So our view is that you work with people to improve the compassion across all of those levels. You help them be kind and respectful to themselves, to recognise when they're doing things that actually aren't helpful, access their inner strength, courage and wisdom, and make a change. They open themselves up to giving help, and they allow other people to help them, because we know that it's good to help. People feel better when they can help someone else. So why would you deprive a loved one the ability or the opportunity to feel good about helping you? Next slide, please. And these are just some little hints and tips practically that we may forget about. So in a state of anxiety, when you're coming across people who are anxious, some of the basics that anxious people forget are to eat well, sleep well, and drink. So, get back to basics and offer advice. Look after yourself in this way too, but if you can offer this advice, great. To stay connected with people who give you energy. Those are the people who will help you to feel good about yourself, will help you laugh, will help you feel motivated. Also, plan activity and get some fresh air. Suggestions around making a list. As we know, if you make a list and tick things off, then that encourages positive endorphins and that helps you feel good. And then doing a what's gone well list at the end of the day. Next slide, please. I'm rushing through these, I'm conscious that I've talked for a long time and I don't want to run over too much. Also to consider people who are working from home, the routine and the structure of the day, and helping them to think about those boundaries. So in managing their family time, managing their work time, managing their leisure time, And having gone through a period of working from home and getting back into the new world, it may be that people need assistance with that. They've got used to everybody being in the same place at the same time. They've not been travelling. So there may be some challenges around getting those boundaries back in place. Social media and the news, we have lots and lots of evidence to support that overwhelming yourself with those are not helping. So it is about asking people how much time they're spending on social media, when they're spending their time. You know, are they reading, you know, distressing news stories before going to bed? All those things have a real impact in your overall well-being. And then allowing yourself time to think. And this is not about sitting very quietly and just chilling. It's about allowing yourself to productively think. Thinking about your day, thinking about how it's gone, and then asking your question, is that real or is that imagined? To allow yourself to challenge that internal voice that might be being critical. Next slide. So this is my last slide of the day, and I just wanted to summarise the services that we offer. We do obviously one-to-one therapies, and that's to help people to change. We have a workplace group programme, and that's about employees struggling. We do that online in groups. We have a leader resilience programme, and again, that is online in groups. And we also have a high impact programme, and that's for business leaders. That's for business leaders who are conscious of the fact that they actually need to stay as well as possible to lead their team where they need to lead them. We have online tasters where I'd like to invite anybody at all to come along and relax with us at those. We cover a topic and then we do a bit of deep relaxation online. And I'd love to see you there if you can make it at all. So thank you very much. I'm sorry, I think I've ran over, and I'll hand back to Angela. I can't hear you at all, Angela.
There we go. We try again. Technology has let me down. Linda, thank you very much for that. That was really helpful. That was very insightful. And, you know, I think a lot our listeners have a lot they can take away. We're just going to have a quick, you know, sort of Q&As going on for you. Thank you very much for those questions. That are really invaluable. One of the questions, Linda, that has popped up is, are you or is SanaMente registered with Bupa so that people can get access through your services through Bupa?
Not at the moment. We are currently going through the process at the moment, so we are in the application and preferred provider process, but sorry, but not at the moment.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, thank you very much. Have I gone again?
Yeah, you're back.
Oh, there we go. The gremlins are with us today, so bear with me. So we have a question from Bavna. Hi, Linda. Thank you for your talk. If an employee is taking time off and working with reduced performance, says they are suffering from tinnitus, is it a continuous and loud? GP says there is no cure. Is there anything that you could possibly suggest that she could do to help?
The treatment around tinnitus, we work with tinnitus quite often actually. It's an interesting one because medically you cannot make the noise go away. But what you can do is you can assist the individual to be distracted from the noise and to be less aware of it and less focused on it, therefore they can be more productive. And you can do that through individual things like hypnotherapy, but you can also do it through online things. You can get certain apps that have got certain noises that they can listen to, certain sounds, and they may be able to find a sound that will help them to reduce their anxiety and be distracted from that sound to help them be more able to live their life, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Yep.
not one that suffers from it, but it's always helpful, and it's always good to know that there is something that as an employer you can actually make these suggestions and recommendations where they will be able to help. So Bhavna, I hope that that has answered your question, but of course if you've got any further questions on that, do pop it in, and if you want something specific, do get in contact, and we would love to in contact with the different people. And I would certainly recommend to anybody who has been there to join Linda and her team on one of those taster sessions. My team had the benefit of having one of Linda's taster sessions earlier in the week, and the feedback that I got from that was really, really positive. And I would strongly recommend sharing the link with your team. It's down to them if they want to join into it, but at least by sharing that information, showing that there is something that they can do, it's at no cost, shows that you are a caring employer who will be able to sort of help and support. And it starts putting those signs up where employees can get help and support. Because if you remember when I first start talking, many people are still too embarrassed to talk about mental health, to reach out for help because of that perceived stigma that is still attached to mental health. So Linda, thank you very much. You're most welcome to stay on and remain with the rest of the webinar. I'm sure there might be some more questions coming on, but as promised to everybody else, my Friday webinars started off a year ago when we were starting to navigate our way through furlough, and I have fondly become to want to share more knowledge and information about furlough and all the different sort of changes that are coming in place. As I said early on, we are about to enter into a new phase of the lockdown. We are about to enter into the new phase of restrictions being lifted. We know that on Monday the stay-at order comes to an end, which means that people are going to be able to go back to work, back into the workplace. Of course, earlier in the month, when the Chancellor presented his spring budget, he announced that the coronavirus job retention scheme, fondly referred to as the furlough scheme, has been extended. You will remember that when the scheme was first introduced, just over a year ago, it was designed to prevent mass redundancies. It was designed to support businesses during this pandemic crisis. Of course, 12 months ago, we didn't expect that we would still be here. And I famously remember myself saying, this is just going to be 12 weeks. It's going to be short, sharp, and we're going to be back to it. But of course, here we are. But the furlough scheme, we know, has been extended until the end of September 2021. And it's open to eligible UK employers that are facing difficulties, and it's to help them retain employees at this very difficult time. From flexible furlough to changing the government contributions, of course, we know that you can have employees on permanent furlough, or we can have them on flexi furlough. That hasn't changed. But what has changed, and I want to cover a couple of important things that employers do need to know about the extension, and of course it is all positive news because it's there to help and support businesses, and it has been a huge support. It's been a huge contribution to keeping businesses going, keeping people in employment rather than going through the mass redundancies that we anticipated. But we're not out of the woods yet. Even though we are, going through this next phase, we are not out of the woods. So businesses can start planning. There are changes to the scheme, as I've said, but it also means that for many businesses, it is big decision time. And if you are making any big decisions, any big changes, I would recommend that you get in contact with someone like HR for UK who will be able to talk you through the options that you have available to you, because we have certainly seen how we have supported businesses over the last 12 months, being being creative in how we can support them with different options. Some options weren't obvious. I mean, the obvious is, oh, we've got to cut staff, but that's not always necessarily the way to go forward. So do get in contact with us if you are planning on making changes. Let us help you, let us support you, and as I say, let us work with you, perhaps finding something a little bit creative so that we can help you to support your business, to help you come out of this coronavirus. And you know, we've supported businesses from just an initial conversation all the way through to supporting and planning changes, right the way to actually executing those changes for them by consulting with employees and helping them navigate their way through the process. But there are four key things that you need to know about the extensions to the coronavirus scheme. Firstly is the government's contribution will be changing. So under the new plan, employees will always receive 80% of their furloughed wages, up to a maximum of £2,500 per month. And this will be covered in its entirety until the end of June. So the government will be picking up the full 80% of the furloughed wages until the 30th of June. From the 1st of July, there will be a step change where the government will reduce their contribution to 70% of the 80%, and employers will have to contribute the remaining 10% to reach the required 80% for the employees' furlough wages. And that means that the government cap is £2,187.50 for their contribution towards the employees. And that will be the case throughout August and September, when the scheme finally comes to an end. We've heard those words before, but I think this time it will finally come to an end on the 30th of September, where the government will, you know what, I'm actually telling you lies here. From the 1st of July, there is another step change that comes in. So let's scrub what I've just told you. I've misread my notes. So let me recap on that. So from until the end of June, the government will be covering the full 80%, and that is £2,500 per month for the furloughed hours that the employee works. From the 1st of July, for July only, it will be 70%, and the employer will have to contribute the remaining 10% to take the employee's wages up to that 80% required furlough wage, and that cap, as I said, is £2,187. From the 1st of August, so for August and September is where that second step change comes in. And from the 1st of September until the scheme closes on the 30th, the government will cover 60% of the employee furlough wages. The employer will have to contribute the additional 20% to take the employee up to the required 80%. So that government cap will reduce down for August and September down to 1,875. And I apologise if I confused anybody, but if you are still unsure, you'll be able to get this information on our website, or of course just drop me an email and I will be able to provide you with that information. Employees will need to have been on your payroll, and a real-time information submission must have been made in March 2021 to enable them to qualify for furlough. And there are quite specific dates that need to be aware of when we are dealing with employees going on furlough, because of course you may have some new employees that may have started with you who you want to put them on perhaps flexi furlough or full-time furlough later in the scheme, perhaps for July, August, or maybe even September. That option is still available to you, but there are still some qualifying eligibility criteria that you do still need to have a look at. Flexible furlough, as I say, will continue. We will recall that the concept of flexible furlough was introduced in July 2020, and this allowed employers to bring back employees on a part-time basis while still claiming the grant from the government for those furlough hours. Of course, any employee coming back into work will receive their full wages for the hours that they actually work, but they will receive the reduced hours for their furloughed hours. In other words, the non-working hours. And of course, the employers will have to pay for auto enrolment, so the pension contributions will continue. The Department of Work and Pensions has confirmed that employers are still liable for the minimum automatic employer contributions for their furloughed employees. So don't forget that. I know that the Department of Work and Pensions and the pensions regulator have been working together, to make sure that whilst they have relaxed the rules in enforcement of making sure that those contributions are paid over, they are now going to start tightening up on, making sure that those contributions are actually paid. So make sure that you keep up with your pension contributions so that you don't fall foul of the law and have the pensions regulator knocking on your door. So again, as an employer, don't forget about all of your employer responsibilities, and one to easy forget is, of course, pensions. There is, of course, advice available out there for businesses. Make sure that if you are going to be making a claim for the grant, that you make sure that you reach and you satisfy that scheme eligibility criteria, both for you as an organisation, because of course the scheme has been extended, the rules did change in December, and again earlier in the month, to be able to allow new businesses, new organisations who weren't previously eligible to make a grant for the furlough scheme can now do that. So again, make sure, if you're unsure, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help and guide you through that. So I think that's all I can say on the furlough scheme. But of course, the latest advice on shielding has also changed. More than 3.79 million people who were categorised as clinically extremely vulnerable will no longer be required to shield from Thursday, the 1st of April. So this means that those who were previously shielding can now come out of that shielding process and can start following the national restrictions alongside with the rest of the population. So for many people, it may mean that you may have had a worker who had to stay at home. Perhaps they were unable to carry out their work that they carried out from home. You may have put them on the furlough scheme, or you may have had them on the statutory sick pay scheme for those who are shielding. And of course, that all comes to an end from Thursday, the 1st of April. And even though these individuals no longer need to shield, they do still need to take extra care, take precautions to keep themselves from catching, COVID-19. That transmission is still really, really important. We all need to play our part in that to make sure that we don't spread coronavirus. Of course, whilst on Monday the stay-at-home order will be lifted, the guidance is still that people should still work from home if they can. If they are unable to do so, of course, as an employer, you have a responsibility, and in fact, you are required by law to take steps to make sure that your workplace is COVID secure. And you should ensure that when you are bringing staff back into the workplace, that you speak to them, tell them about the changes that you have made, tell them about the measures you have in place to ensure that the workplace is safe and secure. And of course, businesses have changed. Many businesses may have been closed over the last 3 months when we had the latest lockdown. If you are coming back into the workplace, make sure that you revisit your COVID risk assessment. Make sure that it is still valid. Make sure that it is still relevant to your current circumstances, because certain things may have changed. So, don't forget about, COVID risk assessment. In previous times, we have had it in our downloads. We will make sure that you are provided with another copy of that. So don't feel alarmed if you don't have that. So again, people returning back to work is going to throw up lots of questions, lots of issues. We are going to go back to, concerns of people wanting to resist return to the office. But all I can say and reassure you is listen to your employees' concerns. Yes, we are coming out of the different restrictions. Yes, we do have that roadmap. But again, as Linda was talking about earlier on, we're still going to have people who are going to have heightened anxiety about coming back into the office, and we need to listen to those concerns and try and help them where we can. Now, I'm going to just quickly find out from my co-presenter if there are any questions who have come up, because I don't have any questions that have cropped up during the course of my little piece, which may be a good sign to say that actually I've shared all the information that I need to. But I have actually had a question that has come in, and the question I think I have already answered. The question there is, when does shielding come to an end? I think I answered that. It comes to an end on Thursday, the 1st of April. So again, people who have received letters to say that they must shield, that will end on the 1st. But again, you know, it's really important to make sure that we do still protect those people by having those protections in place. And I'm just going to get Ellen. Thank you very much for your question. We're going back to the old-fashioned paper questions that have been passed on along to me, because I can't actually see those questions. As I say, those gremlins have crept in. So Ellen has asked, thank you very much for your question, Ellen. I have a member of staff who has been struggling for the past 3 months. Would you recommend sharing the SanaMente presentation with her? Brilliant question, absolutely. The presentation is downloadable from the link, but of course we will email that out to everybody who is registered to the webinar. So yes, please do share that. But more importantly, if you want to have a conversation, or if you want to touch base with Linda, we will share her contact details with you. So please do get in touch. The help is there, and make sure that you do tap into all the help and support that you can get. So either get in contact with us, through our main line, which is 01455 444 222. You can drop us an email, which is info@hrforuk.com, or you can drop us a message through our contact us on our website, which is www.hrforuk.com, and of course we will put you through to Linda, who will be able to help and support you. Or, when we send out all the information to you, by all means, please feel free to get in contact with Linda directly. Linda has a wealth of knowledge and of experience, and I know I can confidently say, that Linda will be able to help you, and she will be able to help your employee, because as we all know, we are in unprecedented times, and people are going to be dealing with things in different ways. Having that bespoke one-to-one service goes a long way. And as I said really early on, looking out there, getting the help and support will go a long way in, putting you forward as a good employer to be able to help that. Linda, I don't know if you want to add anything more to that.
Yeah, can I just add that if you absolutely share my contact details, absolutely happy to talk to anybody at all who wants to talk to us about individual sessions and whatever. We've got the online taster session, and what that does is it gives a little bit of information around coping strategies on different topics. We've done anxiety, we're about to do confidence and self-esteem. But also, if the person goes on the website and just registers for the newsletter, they will have access to an audio, which is it's about 20 minutes confidence boosting relaxation audio. So they can subscribe to the newsletter and then unsubscribe once they've downloaded the thing if they want to. But one of the other things we're working on is a membership area for people who we want to be able to support as many people as possible. So we want to be able to provide services in terms of health and well-being that are accessible to all. So it's not just, we have an online forum and guided meditation, how-to, and videos. And that's in development at the moment. So there'll be more information about that probably in the next couple of months, but it's coming.
Fantastic.
Hope that made sense. Okay.
It does to me, so I'm sure it does to everybody. So thank you very much. So, you know, we've got to 4 o'clock, and I'm really proud of everybody. You've stuck with us throughout the session today, which is really, really good, which means to me that we are really sort of touching on the right topics. We are talking about the right things that you want to know and you want to know more about. So I'm going to wrap up today's webinar. I don't believe there are any further questions, but as I've said, if there are more questions that I have not been able to see because of the gremlins who have joined us today, you know, do go to our website, as I say, www.hrforuk.com, and drop us a message in there, or pick up the phone, good old-fashioned telephone, 01455 444 2. And it doesn't just have to be about today's webinar. If you've got anything that you want to talk about, how we can help and support you, we will be more than happy to do that. So let's have a quick look at what we're going to be discussing at our webinar for April. So our next webinar will be on Friday, the 23rd of April, again at 3 p.m. So do save the date. It's going to be a celebration of surviving 1 year of webinars with me. And as I've had you as my companion throughout the last 12 months, I'm going to make it extra special by everybody who has joined me, whether it's going to be the first time or the last time, whether you've been on every single session, and we are going to put you into a prize draw for some lovely Amazon vouchers that you can spend on me, on you. Should I say it's from me to you. So make sure that you do register for our webinar, because if you're not registered, you're not going to go into that prize draw. But now that we're starting to have a look at what is next on the horizon, we know that businesses are going to start getting people back into work. And I should imagine that many of you are going to start seeing an influx of flexible working requests. Working from home has become the new norm. Working reduced hours has also become the new norm. People who have been on flexi furlough have got used to working different hours, and we have already seen a rise in inquiries coming in how to manage flexible working requests. Don't forget that a flexible working request is a statutory right. Your employees have the right to make that request. There is a prescribed format that you need to go through, and if you get it wrong, it could cost you dearly. So why don't you join me on the 23rd of April when I talk to you about managing flexible working requests, of course, keeping you on the right side of the law, making sure you get it right, and of course you have me for an hour on a Friday afternoon. But before then, don't forget, Sunday, clocks go forward. Yes, we lose an hour. Don't forget, April is a key time for upcoming employment law changes. Look out for my email that's going to come out to you, which is going to detail all those employment law changes, national minimum wage. If you wanted more in-depth of the employment law changes, go back and have a listen to my webinar from last month where I talked about those changes in depth. But if you haven't got time, don't worry, an email is going to be coming out. But most importantly, everybody, have an amazing weekend and have an amazing Easter weekend next weekend. So from me and from Linda, from everybody at HR for UK, thank you for your time. And that's all for me, and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.